There are a few worrying signs emanating from our education system again. For years, we've been told about declining academic standards comparatively amongst our kids compared to similar economies. And we've told you repeatedly about the infiltration of left-wing identity politics in the classrooms. Now it seems some of our kids aren't bothering to turn up, with the latest Productivity Commission report finding nearly 1/3 of students across the country are failing to regularly attend school. Joining me now to discuss this is former school principal and founder and CEO of Real Schools, Adam Voigt. Thanks for joining us, Adam. This is really disturbing noise here. This is really disturbing news, measuring students' truancy, if you like, or failure to attend regularly. They measure the number of students who turn up to school 9 out of 10 days, 90% of the time. And that's fallen from nearly 80% to just 71%. So it's dropped by 10%. As I just mentioned, that's nearly 30% of students who are not attending enough. This seems to be a COVID hangover, right? So many kids have gotten used to not having to go to school. Perhaps some parents are paranoid about the socialisation at school, and we just haven't recovered our school attendance rates.
Yeah, I think you might be particularly at the top end of the scale there, Chris, right on the money. I think it is a hangover from COVID. I think parents are more cautious about the decisions they make when they not only see that their kid has a sniffle about whether they should send them to school or not, but even when they hear that other kids in their class have been crook about whether they should send their kid to school. So that's impacting it, you said, like that 90% range. School attendance is a really interesting beast, though. What we know is that the kids who attend school least, the factors that prevent them attending school are often outside of school's jurisdiction. So they're factors associated with poverty and often domestic dysfunction and, in some cases, aggression and violence in the home. They're things that schools can't do anything about. It was certainly my experience as a principal of a low socioeconomic school where we found that to drive an improvement in attendance, we had to look at kids who were attending, say, 3 to 4 days a week, who really should be attending more often than that, and target specifically them. It's heartbreaking because you're ignoring, in a lot of ways, kids who really need an education more than others. So there's a multitude of factors that sit behind attendance alone. Some of them within a school's grasp, and some of them are more broad societal issues.
A lot of this is predictable, though, because we're talking to educational experts all throughout the pandemic and saying that closing schools was going to hurt kids, that having no in-classroom education was going to hurt kids, particularly the most vulnerable kids, particularly those in lower socio-economic environments. And it would seem on this evidence that we're starting to see that following through. Kids who weren't forced to attend school for a long while, it's been harder to get them back.
Yeah, I think that's undoubted. I think we knew all along that there would be a period where we were going to need to try and recover some of the losses. It wasn't ideal. Teachers didn't want it. Principals didn't want it. Families didn't want the remote learning thing to happen, but happen it did. And coming out of it, what we've also got is a cost of living crisis. So the kids who attend school worst, the lowest grades of attendees, they tend to come from those families that are really struggling. And what we've got now in the community is more kids from those families as we've got this slippage back. And so what we need to do is look at a real wraparound approach here around what our recovery is going to be, and not just leave it to individual schools, because particularly just in the sort of the narrow area of attendance, we're not going to recover that way.
Yeah, now obviously if kids aren't attending school hardly at all, that's going to be disastrous for them. But tell us about the educational impact of kids who are missing, a day a fortnight or a day a week.
Yeah, so those ones, I guess, in a lot of ways, it depends on what they're missing for. So attendance at about 90% compared to, for instance, 85. There's not a lot of data that says that those kids drift away at any scary kind of rate. And what we want to do is say, who are the kids that, for instance, are in that sort of somewhere between, say, 50 and 80? They're the ones that are missing vast tracts of time. And what they're missing is continuity. So at 80, 90%, you're okay on continuity. But at any lower than that, catching up can feel really hard. And what happens is you've got kids who enter the classroom knowing they're behind and knowing that the classroom's going to be a place that they're going to fail. And they not only are less likely to show up then, they're less likely to engage and to try in that environment. So getting the kids back to class is a really important thing for us to try and get focused on. Using a variety of strategies to try and get them there is something that we'll need to continue to do. But we also need to, I guess, not blame COVID forever.
Yeah.
In that these kids didn't lose, these weren't days lost. There was a little bit of discontinuation for sure, but they had teachers on the other end of the laptop every day, keeping them connected, keeping them learning. And I don't think we should use it as a scapegoat forever. I think our kids are bringing to school with them at the moment a bigger impact from, say, broader community anxiety and distress than they are from lockdowns that happened a couple of years ago.
Thanks for joining us on that. I think we'll follow up and talk about some of those strategies later, Adam. It was fascinating, and it's such a crucial issue. Appreciate your time. Adam Voigt there. Really, honestly, if there's kids who are only going to school 3 or 4 days a week, how do we put up with that? As a society, we've got to find ways to get those kids, get them along to school, fix it up, because that is going to hold them back the rest of their lives.